Hello, friends. Welcome back to Book Demystified once again. And today we are going to discuss about the book Your Next 5 Moves by Patrick Bet David. Now, I've got to ask you something. When was the last time you actually sat down and thought about where you want to be 5 years from now? Not just some vague dream like, I want to be successful, but an actual, concrete plan with real steps and strategies. Most of us are so caught up in the daily grind, checking emails, paying bills, scrolling through social media, that we never actually step back and think strategically about our future. We're like chess players who only think one move ahead, while the people building real wealth are thinking 5, 10, even 20 moves into the future. That's exactly what Patrick Bet David discovered when he went from being a broke immigrant working at Morgan Stanley to building a 9-figure insurance empire and media company. Here's what's crazy. Bet David wasn't born with some special advantage. He came to America as a refugee from Iran, barely speaking English with literally nothing to his name. But what he figured out, and what he teaches in this book, is that success isn't about being the smartest person in the room or having the best connections. It's about learning to think strategically, like a chess grandmaster who can see multiple moves ahead while everyone else is just reacting to whatever's happening right now. And that's exactly what we're going to unpack today. How to develop the strategic mindset that separates wealthy people from everyone else. Because here's the truth that most Americans never realize. The difference between people who build generational wealth and people who stay stuck in the middle class isn't talent, luck, or even hard work. It's the ability to think strategically about the future and make moves today that set up bigger wins tomorrow. Think about your own life for a second. How many decisions do you make based on immediate needs versus long-term strategy? When you chose your college major, did you research which industries were growing and would pay well in 10 years? Or did you just pick something that seemed interesting? When you took your current job, did you consider how it would position you for future opportunities? Or did you just need to pay the bills? Most of us, myself included, have made plenty of short-term decisions that seemed logical at the time but didn't serve our long-term interests. That's exactly the trap that Bet David fell into early in his career. He was working at Morgan Stanley, making decent money, but he realized he was just trading time for dollars with no real plan for building wealth. He was thinking like an employee, not like an entrepreneur. The breakthrough came when he started studying successful business leaders and realized they all shared one common trait. They thought in systems and strategies, not just tactics and immediate results. This is where Bet David introduces what he calls strategic thinking, and it's completely different from how most Americans approach their careers and finances. Strategic thinking means looking at your life like a chessboard where every move you make either opens up new possibilities or closes them off. It means understanding that success isn't about working harder in your current situation. It's about positioning yourself for opportunities that don't even exist yet. Let me give you a perfect example that hits close to home for most Americans. Think about the technology boom of the last 20 years. The people who got wealthy from it weren't necessarily the smartest programmers or the hardest workers. They were the ones who saw the trend early and positioned themselves to benefit from it. They learned relevant skills, joined growing companies, or started businesses that served the tech industry. They were thinking strategically about where the economy was heading, not just reacting to their current circumstances. Now, Bet David breaks this strategic thinking process down into 5 specific moves that you need to master if you want to build real wealth. The first move is what he calls master knowing yourself. This sounds simple, but it's actually where most people fail before they even start. You can't develop an effective strategy if you don't honestly understand your own strengths, weaknesses, and what actually motivates you. Here's what I mean. Most Americans choose careers based on what their parents want, what pays well immediately, or what seems prestigious. But they never take the time to figure out what they're actually good at and what kind of work environment brings out their best performance. Bet David talks about understanding your personality type, your natural talents, and most importantly, what you're willing to sacrifice to achieve your goals. I remember when I first started thinking seriously about my own career path. I was doing what everyone expected, following the traditional route of college, corporate job, climbing the ladder, but I never stopped to ask myself whether I was actually built for corporate life or whether my personality and skills would be better suited for entrepreneurship. That self-awareness would have saved me years of frustration and probably accelerated my success significantly. Bet David emphasizes that knowing yourself also means being brutally honest about your current situation. Not where you wish you were or where you tell people you are, but where you actually are right now. What's your real net worth? What skills do you actually have versus what you think you have? What are you actually willing to do versus what you say you're willing to do? This honest self-assessment is the foundation for everything else. The second move is master the ability to reason. This is about developing your decision-making process so you can think through complex situations and make better choices consistently. Most Americans make decisions based on emotions, social pressure, or short-term thinking. But wealthy people have systematic approaches to reasoning through decisions. Bet David teaches a framework for decision-making that considers multiple factors: the immediate consequences, the long-term implications, the opportunity costs, and the potential risks. It's like having a checklist that you run every major decision through to make sure you're thinking it through completely. Think about how most Americans make major financial decisions. They buy houses based on monthly payment rather than total cost and long-term appreciation potential. They choose jobs based on salary rather than learning opportunities and career trajectory. They invest based on tips from friends rather than research and strategy. These aren't necessarily bad decisions, but they're not strategic decisions.
Strategic reasoning means asking different questions. Instead of, can I afford the monthly payment, you ask, is this the best use of my capital for building long-term wealth? Instead of, does this job pay well? You ask, what skills will I learn and what network will I build that will serve me in 5 years? Instead of, what stock should I buy? You ask, what's my overall investment strategy and how does this fit into it? The third move is absolutely crucial for Americans in today's economy. Master building the right team. Bet David points out that individual success is largely a myth. Every wealthy person he's studied had built networks and teams that amplified their efforts. But most people think about networking completely wrong. Traditional networking advice tells you to go to events, collect business cards, and try to meet important people. But Bet David shows that real networking is about becoming valuable to others first, then building genuine relationships based on mutual benefit. It's about understanding that your network determines your net worth, but only if you're contributing value to that network. Here's something that really hit me when I first read this book. Most Americans see other successful people as competition rather than potential collaborators. We're taught from childhood to compete against each other for grades, jobs, and recognition. But wealthy people understand that the biggest opportunities come from collaboration, not competition. Think about the most successful companies in America: Apple, Google, Amazon, Facebook. None of these were built by individual genius working alone. They were all built by teams of talented people working together toward common goals. Even if you're not planning to start the next tech giant, this principle applies to building wealth at any level. Maybe you're a real estate investor who partners with contractors, property managers, and other investors to do bigger deals than you could handle alone. Maybe you're a consultant who builds relationships with other consultants so you can refer business to each other and collaborate on larger projects. Maybe you're an employee who builds internal networks that lead to better opportunities and faster promotions. The principle is the same. Success comes from relationships and teamwork, not just individual effort. The fourth move is master strategy to scale. And this is where Bet-David really separates himself from typical business advice. Most business books focus on tactics, specific techniques for marketing, sales, operations, etc. But Bet-David focuses on strategy, the overall approach that determines whether tactics will be effective. Strategic scaling means understanding the difference between working in your business versus working on your business. When you're working in your business, you're doing the daily tasks that keep things running. When you're working on your business, you're building systems and processes that allow the business to grow without your constant involvement. I see this mistake constantly among Americans who start side businesses or freelancing operations. They get busy delivering services or products, but they never step back to build the systems that would allow them to scale beyond their personal time investment. They create jobs for themselves instead of building businesses that could eventually operate without them. Bet-David shows how to think about scaling from the very beginning. Before you launch any business or wealth-building strategy, you need to understand how it could potentially grow to serve more customers, generate more income, and require less of your personal time. If you can't see a path to scaling, you're not building a business. You're creating a more complicated job for yourself. Hey, if you're enjoying our free book summaries and want to support what we do, there are a few easy ways to help. You can subscribe to the channel, become a member, or grab the book using our affiliate link in the description. And if you'd like to go a step further, you can also leave a tip via PayPal or UPI. The link's below. Every bit of support helps us keep creating valuable content for you. The fifth and final move is master power plays, and this might be the most important one for Americans trying to build wealth in today's economy. Bet-David defines power plays as strategic moves that create disproportionate results. These are the decisions and actions that can accelerate your wealth building by years or even decades. Most Americans think about career and wealth building in linear terms. They expect that working twice as hard will lead to twice the results, or that gaining more experience will lead to proportional increases in income. But that's not how wealth actually works. Wealth comes from exponential moves, decisions that create multiplying effects rather than just additive improvements. Think about some of the power plays that have created massive wealth for ordinary Americans. Buying real estate in emerging markets before they became popular. Learning in-demand skills before they became mainstream, joining startup companies that later went public, investing in stocks or cryptocurrencies before major growth periods, starting businesses that solved problems just as those problems were becoming widespread. The key insight that Bet-David shares is that power plays aren't just lucky breaks. They're the result of strategic positioning. The people who benefit from these opportunities are the ones who position themselves to recognize and capitalize on them. They develop the skills, networks, and resources needed to take advantage when opportunities appeared. But here's where most Americans get it wrong. They wait for perfect information or guaranteed outcomes before making moves. Bet-David shows that power plays, by definition, involve calculated risks taken before outcomes are certain. If everyone could see that an opportunity would definitely work out, it wouldn't be a power play anymore. The competition would eliminate the extraordinary returns. This is why developing strategic thinking is so crucial. You need to be able to analyze trends, assess risks, and make informed bets about future developments. You can't eliminate all uncertainty, but you can learn to make better decisions under uncertainty.
Now let me share how Bet-David puts all 5 moves together into what he calls strategic life planning. This isn't just about business strategy. It's about approaching your entire life with the same strategic mindset that chess grandmasters use to win games.
Strategic life planning starts with envisioning where you want to be in 20 years, then working backwards to figure out what needs to happen in 15 years, 10 years, 5 years, and right now to make that vision a reality. Most Americans do the opposite. They make decisions based on immediate circumstances and hope things work out in the long run. Here's a practical example of how this works. Let's say your 20-year vision is to own a portfolio of rental properties that generates enough passive income to replace your job salary. Working backwards, that means in 15 years, you need to have most of those properties acquired and cash flowing. In 10 years, you need to have your first few properties and be actively acquiring more. In 5 years, you need to have your financing lined up, market knowledge developed, and maybe your first property purchased. Right now, you need to start learning about real estate investing, improving your credit score, and saving for down payments. Most people who want to invest in real estate never get started because they focus on all the things they don't know and all the money they don't have right now. But strategic thinkers focus on the specific steps they need to take today to be positioned for opportunities in the future. Bet David also emphasizes the importance of what he calls situational awareness. Constantly monitoring changes in your industry, the economy, and society that could create new opportunities or threats. This is especially important for Americans because our economy changes so rapidly that strategies that worked 5 years ago might not work today. Think about how many careers have been disrupted by technology just in the last decade. Taxi drivers by Uber and Lyft, hotel workers by Airbnb, retail workers by e-commerce, travel agents by online booking sites. The people who thrived during these changes were the ones who saw them coming and positioned themselves accordingly. They either developed skills for the new economy or started businesses that served the changing market. This kind of situational awareness requires what Bet David calls intellectual curiosity, constantly learning about trends and developments outside your immediate area of expertise. Most Americans get comfortable in their expertise and stop paying attention to broader changes. But strategic thinkers understand that the biggest opportunities often come from the intersection of different industries and trends. One of the most powerful concepts that Bet David introduces is the idea of asymmetric risk-taking. This means taking calculated risks where the potential upside is much larger than the potential downside. Most Americans are taught to avoid risk entirely, but that's actually the riskiest strategy of all because it guarantees you'll never achieve extraordinary results. Asymmetric risk-taking doesn't mean being reckless or gambling with money you can't afford to lose. It means identifying opportunities where you can invest time, energy, or money with limited downside but unlimited upside potential. Starting a side business while keeping your day job is asymmetric risk-taking. Learning high-value skills that could lead to career advancement is asymmetric risk-taking. Building relationships with successful people who could open doors for you is asymmetric risk-taking. The key is understanding that not taking these kinds of calculated risks is actually the biggest risk of all. If you always play it safe, you guarantee that you'll never achieve financial freedom. The safe path might feel comfortable, but it leads to a lifetime of financial mediocrity. Bet David also addresses something that I think is really important for American audiences, the cultural programming that makes strategic thinking difficult for most people. We're taught to follow instructions, stay in our lane, and trust that hard work will be rewarded. But strategic thinking requires questioning assumptions, looking for opportunities outside your current situation, and taking responsibility for creating your own opportunities. This shift from employee mindset to strategic mindset is probably the biggest challenge most Americans face when trying to build wealth. Employees think about job security, benefits, and annual raises. Strategic thinkers think about skill development, relationship building, and positioning for future opportunities that don't exist yet. The transition isn't easy because it requires giving up the illusion of security that comes with traditional employment. But as Bette David points out, that security is largely an illusion anyway. Companies lay off employees, industries get disrupted, and economic conditions change. The only real security comes from developing the skills and mindset needed to create value regardless of external circumstances. Now let me walk you through how to actually implement these 5 moves in your own life, starting right now. The first step is conducting what Bette David calls a strategic audit of your current situation. This means honestly assessing where you are in each area of your life and identifying the biggest gaps between your current reality and your long-term goals. For knowing yourself, this means taking personality assessments, skills inventories, and really thinking about what motivates you and what you're naturally good at. For reasoning ability, this means examining recent decisions you've made and analyzing whether you used strategic thinking or just reacted emotionally. For team building, this means mapping out your current network and identifying where you need stronger relationships. For scaling strategy, this means looking at your current income sources and asking whether they have the potential to grow exponentially or just incrementally. And for power plays, this means identifying the biggest strategic moves you could make in the next year that could accelerate your progress significantly. The second step is developing what Bette David calls strategic habits, daily and weekly practices that keep you thinking strategically rather than just reactively. This might include reading industry publications to stay aware of trends, networking regularly with people who can help you grow, continuously learning new skills that position you for future opportunities, and regularly reviewing and adjusting your long-term plans. Most Americans spend more time planning their weekend entertainment than they do planning their financial future. But strategic thinkers reverse this. They spend significant time each week thinking about their long-term goals and the steps needed to achieve them.
The third step is taking what Bette David calls strategic action, making moves that position you for future opportunities even if they don't provide immediate benefits. This might mean taking a lower-paying job at a fast-growing company rather than a higher-paying job at a stable company. It might mean investing in education or skills development that will pay off years down the road. It might mean starting a side business that could eventually replace your day job income. Strategic action requires patience because the benefits often don't appear immediately. But that's exactly why most people don't take strategic action. They want immediate gratification rather than long-term results. This is where disciplined thinking becomes crucial. Bette David also emphasizes the importance of what he calls strategic partnerships, relationships with people who have complementary skills and resources that can help you achieve bigger goals than you could accomplish alone. These aren't just networking relationships where you're trying to get something from someone. These are genuine partnerships where both parties benefit from working together. For example, maybe you're good at marketing but need help with operations. Partnering with someone who has strong operational skills could allow both of you to build bigger businesses than either could build alone. Maybe you have investment capital but need expertise in a particular industry. Partnering with experts in that industry could give you access to better investment opportunities. These partnerships are especially important in today's economy because successful businesses require so many different skills that it's almost impossible for one person to master everything. The entrepreneurs who build the biggest businesses are usually the ones who are best at identifying and partnering with people who have complementary skills. As we start wrapping up our journey through Bette David's strategic thinking framework, I want to emphasize what I think is the most important takeaway from this book. Success isn't about being smarter than everyone else or working harder than everyone else. It's about thinking more strategically than everyone else.
Most Americans approach their careers and finances tactically. They focus on immediate problems and short-term solutions. They work harder at their current job to get a raise. They look for better jobs that pay more money. They save more money and invest in index funds. These aren't bad strategies, but they're tactical rather than strategic. Strategic thinking means stepping back from immediate concerns and asking bigger questions. Instead of, how do I make more money at my current job, you ask, what skills and relationships do I need to build multiple income streams? Instead of, how do I find a better job, you ask, what trends are creating new opportunities that I could position myself to capitalize on? Instead of, how do I save more money, you ask, how do I build assets that generate income without my constant involvement? This shift in thinking is what separates people who build generational wealth from people who just earn good livings. It's the difference between playing defense with your finances and playing offense. Defense is about protecting what you have and minimizing risks. Offense is about creating value, building assets, and positioning for exponential growth. The final lesson that Bet David drives home is that strategic thinking is a learnable skill, not a natural talent. The people who seem naturally strategic have simply practiced thinking strategically more than most people. They've developed the habit of looking beyond immediate circumstances to see longer-term patterns and possibilities. You can develop this same skill by starting to think strategically about small decisions and gradually working up to bigger ones. Instead of just choosing a restaurant for dinner, think about what kind of experience you want to create and which restaurant best serves that goal. Instead of just buying whatever's on sale at the grocery store, think about how your food choices support your long-term health and energy goals. These might seem trivial examples, but the thinking process is the same whether you're choosing a restaurant or choosing a career path. Strategic thinking is about clarifying your goals, understanding your options, considering long-term consequences, and making decisions that position you for future success. So here's how you can start implementing these principles immediately. First, spend time this week doing a strategic audit of your current situation. Be brutally honest about where you are versus where you want to be. Second, identify the one strategic move you could make in the next 90 days that would position you better for long-term success. Third, start building the daily habits of strategic thinking, reading about trends in your industry, networking with successful people, and continuously learning skills that will be valuable in the future. Remember, the goal isn't to predict the future perfectly, it's to position yourself so that you can benefit regardless of which specific opportunities emerge. The people who build real wealth aren't fortune tellers, they're strategic thinkers who understand how to create value and capture opportunities in any environment. Your next 5 moves are waiting to be planned. The question is whether you'll think strategically about them or just react to whatever happens next.